welcome to the Marina Skua Podcast. My name's Marina, I'm a knitwear designer and yarn and fibre dyer, and I also do some spinning and weaving, and other crafts occasionally, but don't think I'm going to talk about any of them today. So today I'm going to be chatting about what I have been working on recently, and a fair bit of it you might have seen before if you've watched the podcast previously, because I'm working on lots of different projects at the same time in different crafts, and so progress on each is incremental, and also I don't know where the last month has gone. It feels like time is flying, but I also am spending a lot of the time that I usually would be crafting out in the garden, planting things, sowing things, and really enjoying the springtime. We've had a decent bit of nice weather and it's so exciting to see the garden growing. So as well as sharing some of my projects, towards the end of this episode I'm going to be showing you a quick look around our front garden for the first time this year, because it's finally got stuff worth showing off. It's still very much in the warming up phase, but I think this summer's going to be a very nice one. So hopefully I'll be able to show a few updates over the year so you can see how it progresses. So without further ado, I shall talk about what I'm wearing. I don't think I've shown you this one in quite a while. This is my Galdor cardigan. So we've got these sort of half-length sleeves, which are, I thought they were going to be a bit weird and annoying when I designed this cardigan, but I actually love them. They kind of sit just below where I bend my elbow, and I love that silhouette they give where the colourwork and the facing behind it provides a bit of structure, so they come out at a bit of an angle. And then the front bands are also faced, because it was always going to be an open cardigan, and I didn't want the chance of seeing strands on the inside when it inevitably flaps back occasionally. So it's finished off quite neatly, which I really enjoy. And yeah, I'm kind of tempted to make another one because I love this one so much and it works really nicely as a neutral. So I made this one in a variety of limited edition yarns from Woolly Mammoth Fibre Co. Lovely Emma, who I believe is on mat leave at the moment. So I think she's still occasionally sending out yarn. I can't remember how she's managing things. But so these are all natural sheepy colours. There's some Jacobs, there's some Texel, there's some Dorset, and there's something else in there, but I can't remember what it is. That's bad of me. Because I think this main lighter grey one is Texel blended with something. But the one I've used for the facing, which you can see is very slightly darker, and I used that one because I wanted a little bit more contrast with the white in the colourwork. That one is Jacobs, and then the white is Dorset, which is really nice and bouncy. So yes, I love this one. I think it would be really fun to make one in a different colour combination in my Mendip yarn. And recently I've been making quite a few, not necessarily second samples, but going back to older patterns of mine and making a new version, which I'm finding quite interesting because I generally don't like knitting the same thing twice. I find it dull. But I think with these it's possible that it's been long enough since I knitted them that it's actually fun to revisit and work in different colours. So recently I made a second version of Opula, which is a colourwork yoke jumper. And I am also working on something which I genuinely believed I was going to have finished to show you, but then remembered I'd missed an entire thing. So this is my Mistland cardigan, which is so almost done. I finished the sleeves And I was starting on the cuffs after I put the child to bed in the evening, and thought, yeah, it's just the cuffs to knit. That's like no work at all. I'll be able to do that, get my ends woven in, and then it's finished. Doesn't have a button band, guys. So I still need to do the button band, and that involves picking up stitches and counting, and so I shall do that like probably this evening. But really looking forward to having this done, because I want to be wearing this already. It's you can kind of see it's, I don't know, I'm knitting it somewhat loosely given the weight of yarn, but it's very fuzzy. So this is a handspun yarn, which I have talked about a fair bit before, because I spun it 2 years ago. I started spinning it 2 years ago, and then finished it months later, because garment quantities of yarn tend to take me a very long time to spin, because I get really bored of them. But that's the way it goes. Like, I could just spin lots of smaller amounts of different things, but then those wouldn't lead to the kind of things that I want to make and want to have like in my wardrobe or in my house. So there's not much point in it. So I would rather like suck up the fact that I find some of the making process a bit tedious than create loads of stuff that I don't really have a use for. So this is a whole mishmash blend of undyed fibres. There's blue-faced Leicesters, Vartblus, some Shetland Teeswater from Fernhill Farm. There is some Angora. There's a bit of alpaca. There might be other things. I don't remember. It's been quite a long time. But it's almost finished, and it's going to be lovely. It's going to add really nicely to my wardrobe. I think it would work really nicely with this outfit, because it's another grey cardigan. But again, having the longer sleeves and the ability to button it up will be great for when it's just like a degree or two colder than it is now. And yeah, it's going to be really nice. And I have the fairly large mother of pearl buttons that I used for the original sample of this. So this is a design that I originally did for a magazine. And the yarn I was allocated was a very pretty gentle pink, which is not really my colour. I like quite desaturated pinks, like fairly dusty ones, and not like a pretty baby pink. It's just not really me. And so I did wear that cardigan a little bit, but it didn't really feel right with most of my like clothes and outfits. And so I decided to dye it like as a garment, and it was the first thing I decided to dye after coming back from maternity leave, and I bodged it so badly. I hadn't done any dyeing in this house, and with the different hob setup and different water, and also I was still quite sleep deprived, and it just went very badly wrong. So I frogged that one. I have used a lot of the yarn in a small cardigan which I made for my son, and the rest of the yarn is going into a long-term kind of scrappy project that I keep forgetting exists and really should finish because it's not that far off. So I wanted to make another sample of this cardigan so that I actually have a version of it, because it's a really lovely design and I think it's very wearable. And also the original photos we took of that design for when I self-published the pattern once the rights reverted back to me after it was published in the magazine. The photos just were not great. Again, very sleep deprived. We had just put the child to bed. It's when he was much, much younger, and like just trying to shoot in between boy sleeping and the sun actually going down, and so the light was a bit rubbish. We couldn't go out to somewhere pretty, so we were just trying to shoot in our back garden, and the photos just didn't turn out great. So I would really like to have a version that I can take new photos of and sort of show off how nice it is. So yeah, that's that one. Inevitably, if I'm not wearing it in the next episode, something's gone wrong, because I do just have the button band to do, and yeah, so the buttons from the original sample I took off and are going to go on this one because they will be really pretty. And then, if you caught the last episode, you will have seen how I had just finished a big long spin. It took a very long time, and I was really glad to be done with the yarn, and I was kind of debating what I was going to do for weaving it, because I had spun it specifically with the idea of weaving it into fabric, and then kind of realised that I would also need to weave another yarn to go with it, and I was thinking of using that yarn as the warp and then the new yarn as the weft. Pretty much immediately after having that conversation and properly thinking through things, I went and I dyed up more fibre, and so I am now spinning what will become the warp for this project. In fact, I should show them to you together. So, fibre that is going to become the warp. This is my feather blend, which is a really sleek, lustrous blend of British breeds. So it's got Blueface Leicester, Shetland, Teeswater and Wensleydale. I think that's all of them. The Shetland is the least lustrous, but that gives... So all of the fibres except the Shetland are white, and then the Shetland is a morit, which gives the sort of browny shade that's in there. It's quite a nice cinnamony colour. And I just love this colour. It's one of my favourite shades. Really nice, warm green, and it feels so springy. It's basically exactly the colour of when I look out the window. And I'm really enjoying spinning it. It's very, very sleek. It drafts out very nicely. And obviously I spun a small sample of it. So the way it works when I create blends is that I have a little stash of fibres, really little bits upstairs, that Wingham Woolworks sent to me a year and a half ago-ish, and maybe more than that. I'm rambling. So I created my skewer blend just over a year and a half ago, and for that I wanted to test out the fibres that I was putting into it and ensure that I was combining qualities that would complement each other, and I wanted to make sure that that would work in practice rather than just in theory. So they sent me lots of little bits of fibre so that I could just try blending them myself on my hand cards and then spin up tiny samples. And obviously when it's commercially blended, that the finish is slightly different, but by just combining them by hand, I could kind of see how those fibres work together. And so then once I've done a little rough blend like that, I place a sample order with Wingham. So their minimum quantity for custom blends is 500 grams. So then they send me 500 grams of the blend that I have created, and then I can spin some of that up, dye it up if that's what I want to do, see how that goes, and if I like it, then we can put it into production and I can then order larger quantities of it. If there's something I think I need to tweak with it, then I can do that as well. And so I did sample this when I received my initial sample batch, but that was a little mini skein. And I specifically wanted this to be a blend that drafts out really smoothly, so and is quite sort of lightweight and lustrous, so very easy to draft into a fine yarn. Longer staple lengths, so each individual fibre being longer, means that that's a bit easier because you've got more tensile strength, because there are like each individual fibre overlaps for longer, and so it takes a lot more to sort of pull the yarn apart, if that makes sense. So when you're spinning, it is less likely to just run away from you and break than something that is mostly shorter fibres. That's in this kind of preparation, which is a wool top where all of the fibres are aligned and parallel. Yes, so I specifically wanted this to be nice and sleek and with a bit of luster, and I specifically wanted it to be good for like lightweight summer spinning and therefore knits. And I have pre-drafted it loads. Actually, that's not true. I've pre-drafted it a tiny bit, but I have split it down a lot. So that makes it really easy to spin fine, because it means that I don't really have to spend much time actually drafting the fibre. So this is my basket of fluff. I have already started spinning my first bobbin, and I am trying to work through it slightly faster than I did with the other yarn, which is this one. Now this is really rather moody. Very much feels sort of autumn winter rather than cheerful springiness. But I think they're going to complement each other quite nicely. So we've got the warm greens in here, but this is dyed on a much darker base. So this is my skewer blend, which has more natural colour to it, and also a bit of a kind of wilder, slightly more rustic texture. And then this is sleeker and smoother, and that is why I'm going to use this for the warp, so that, well, it's going to be stronger yarn than this. This I am worried about being a bit weak, and for my loom I'm going to need some slightly stronger yarn, because weft threads, so the ones that go back and forth across the weaving, don't really need to bear much, if any, strain while you're weaving. As long as you're careful, you can manage it very easily. Whereas warp threads are put under a lot of tension and a fair bit of abrasion, and so if you've got a weak yarn there, they can break really easily, and that is maddening, because fixing a broken warp thread is faff, and if you have to do it multiple times, that's multiple faff, and no. So yeah, so the idea will be spin this as fast as I can, which I'm not pretending is going to actually be fast. It'll be a 2-ply, same as this. I'm aiming for a similar weight through no real metric other than what it feels like my hands are doing. That is kind of how I spin. I don't really measure twist or wraps per inch or anything as I'm spinning. I sort of just operate off how it feels and hope for the best. Which makes it more fun for me, although it leads to problems that I then have to overcome later. But that's fine. So yeah, so that fibre, this colour's called Peridot, and this is 300 grams, and I usually dye my fibre in 600 gram batches, so 300 grams of it was left over and added to the shop in my latest fibre update, which, surprisingly, there is actually still some fibre in the shop. So I will show you some of the colours that we've still got available. So let's do the feather blend ones first, because that's what we're already on. This has some of the same greeny tones. I actually dyed that one, the peridot, and this in the same evening. And this, I was seeing if I was considering both of them and dyeing them both at the same time to see which one I preferred. This one I think has a bit too much variegation in it. I wanted something fairly flat. And so this has got some areas of yellow. It's got some very slightly more bluey greens. And then these nice little bits of kind of pinky burgundy, kind of like the pink you get in hellebores. And I could have called this one hellebore. Huh. I didn't. I called it euphorbia because they're also the colours you get in euphorbias. And I really like this one. I think it's very pretty. It's just that like mostly springy green, but with some areas of more of the natural colour showing through. And then those little deep warm sections that I think are very pretty. And that would actually combine quite nicely if you were going a bit bold with this one, because you've got some very similar shades in there. So this one's Euphorbia. This one is Dancers in Pink, which is a painting by Degas. Often come back to Degas for sort of gentle pinky colours. This is slightly more saturated than his stuff usually is, but he's got some nice kind of coppery colours in it and some sort of apricot-y shades as well as some brighter, cooler pinks. I think this one's very pretty. I said I was a bit funny about pink, but there are enough good things in here that I really like this one. And like these sections are the pink that's like a little bit too strong for me, but if you split this up into lots of little bits like I've done with this, you end up with very short sections of each like area of colour. And so if you then deliberately spun it to be muddy, which most people try to avoid, it would then combine really nicely and give an all over kind of gentle mottled effect rather than really high contrast. Because you could spin high contrast on this. If you did a chain ply on it, you would have some areas of quite pale colour and then really strong colour with it. So it's just about how you prepare it that sort of dictates how the actual yarn's going to come out. And that's one of the things that I really find fun about spinning, is that you're designing your own yarn, and I love that. And so you give the same braid of fibre to two different people and tell them to spin it in the way that feels right to them. Depending how experienced they are in spinning and how many different things they're familiar with, you could end up with two completely different looking yarns, and I find that so cool. Then this one goes really nicely with my trousers. This one is called Rusalka. We've got some darker tealy bits and then some paler, gentle, kind of duck eggy sea foamy bits, and then very occasional little bits of gentle sort of peachy apricot, which I think are really pretty. I love peachy apricots, and I am kind of working on trying to get more of them into my dyeing without it coming out too saturated, because all of my fibre colours are limited editions, and so a lot of them are experiments and they're quite fun for me. But I don't actually have a peachy apricot dye, and so it involves using very low concentrations of like orange dye, but that can just go orange, or very low concentrations of a pink dye that can then just go like fuchsia. That one I was aiming for some bright pinks, but then you do have some of the more gentle ones in there as well. So yes, those ones are all on feather blend, so we'll be really, Really nice and sleek and lustrous, so they're good for summer spinning. Then we have Solace, which is a really, like, the way it takes dye is, it just looks like watercolors. They're so gentle, and the colors kind of, even if you aim for like quite strong, harsh color transitions, they just kind of, they chill out, and they just feel like moody and fuzzy, and it's quite a matte looking fibre. So it's really gentle and just kind of comforting, which is why it's called Solace. Also, I designed this blend about a year ago when I went up to Wingham Woolwork to go and collect some stuff. And I designed this while I was in the mill with them. And it's when I was just having a really, really rubbish time here, and I was sort of stuck here a lot, monitoring building work and things, and everything was chaos. And actually just going and spending an afternoon in a mill playing with fluff was just like a little oasis of calm for me, which is not what you'd usually expect from that environment. But so this one is Dorset Horn and Cotswold and Shropshire. And so the Dorset Horn and Cotswold are both white, and then the Shropshire is grey, and that's what the streaks are in there. And so overall, the undyed fibre is a gentle grey, and it just gives these lovely, lovely colours. So this one is called New Leaf because it is kind of springy, and we've got these kind of coppery colours that are kind of coming out in the Copper Beech just over the road there, and on the Acer that I've got in my back garden. And I think it would just spin to be like such a calm yarn. Like it would, I don't know, it's quite low saturation, there's interesting stuff going on, but I think it would just be like balm for the soul once it's spun up. These ones are a bit stronger. These ones I kind of did as variations on a theme, so they've got similar stuff going on, but also different things. So firstly, we have Rothko, just because it felt like quite a Rothko palette. So we've got these kind of cool purpley, mallardy green, slaty bits at the end. And then in the middle, these stronger kind of orangey, reddy bits. And so this one is, I really like this style of dyeing. I call it palindromic for hopefully obvious reasons, where you've got one colour on the ends and then the middle section is different. And if you spin this, like either all as one, like without splitting it at all, or you just split it in half and then apply those halves together, you will preserve that colour transition. And so you could either do that as like stripes in like a tank or something, which could look quite cool, or like for a shawl, if you did two of these, you would get that fade and you could preserve it quite nicely, especially if, depending on the construction you choose. If you went for like one like Frostbeam, which, I've forgotten her, Naomi, I've forgotten her Instagram name. Thinking aloud, sorry. She spun one of my braids and then knitted it up into a Frostbeam shawl, which is one of my designs that starts from one end and gets wider towards the middle and then gets skinnier again. And so doing something like that would be really cool because you would preserve all of those colour changes, but you've also got quite a dynamic design for it to play across. It could be really fun. I would like to knit more shawls with my handspun yarn, because I don't have loads of shawls, and I have some really fun shawl patterns that I think would look completely different in yarn that's different to the ones that I designed them for. And I think shawls are an excellent way to use up like not garment quantities of handspun yarn. So this one, similar thing, bigger section of the deep reddy orangey colours in the middle, less of the purple, and then some of the kind of greeny tealy bits. But then at the ends we've got some like really strong yellow, like verging on orange yellow. And this one is Vase d'un Homme, Vase of an Enemy's, which is a Matisse painting. I think one of the last ones he did before he went in like completely into paper cutting. I hadn't realised that the paper cutting stuff was a result of ill health, and that was easier for him than painting. And so the paper cutting, which he is most known for, became his primary form of expression, but he had a really cool and interesting painting career before that. And this one just reminds me of those colours. And then last one is the only one I have on my skewer blend, which is the same as this one. Actually quite similar vibes. We've got pink here instead of orange. There is a lot of orange in here, but it kind of just gets muddled into the green and the sort of natural greyish brown, which is what I was aiming for. As I said, a lot of people aim for not muddiness in their handspun yarn because they want to preserve like really cool, interesting colour changes. I like my yarn to be as muddy as possible. I like to mush all of those shades together and do a bit of sort of optical blending. I do occasionally enjoy strongly saturated colours, but mostly I like things to be a bit fuzzy and desaturated. Yeah, kind of how it goes. So this one is called Ling, named after the heather, and it's actually not named after what the heather is doing at the moment, which is like vibrant, fun beauty. It's sort of more named after either when the heather's just coming out or when it's just going over. So you've got more of the foliage, which is this kind of dark, warm green, and then just a little bit of the pink that isn't properly like popping yet. Yeah, so I quite like doing this because often I don't explain my colour names at all. I have been dyeing yarn and fibre for almost 10 years now, and I try to never repeat a colourway name, but when you're doing sort of 6 to 10 limited edition colours every month, they begin to get slightly weird because like I'm often drawn to similar vibes in colour combinations. And so things like mermaid, every time I do something that's like bluey purples and a bit of lavender and stuff, like you can't call it mermaid again. You did a mermaid in like 2016, stop it. And so I often want to call things I've called them previously, and if I actually follow what the colours remind me of, sometimes it's slightly off the wall. Like I did one, I think a couple of months ago, that was on Feather Blend, and I'll put a photo of it up here. It was called If Trees Had Shells, and I usually try to make them be not, like a bit more concise and slightly less, you what? because that was kind of the idea, that like it looked like mother of pearl, but not the kind of pastel pinky blues that you often get with it, with a bit of like lilac. It was more sort of greens with a bit of pinky brown. And to me, that kind of felt like, what if, like when you've got a log and the bark is beginning to peel off because it's not alive anymore. What if, like, when you peeled off that bark, it wasn't brown on the inside? What if it was like when you open an oyster and you've got this kind of dull-looking barnacled thing on the outside, and you open it up and it's like, oh my God, that's wondrous and beautiful. If trees had that, that's what it would look like in my mind. And why did I call that fibre that? So yes, sometimes the names get the better of me and they end up being a bit strange. Sometimes they are... We've got a few paintings and painters in this one, which is quite nice. They're often plants, many plants, because I love plants. Often gemstones. I really enjoy gemstones. And yeah. Once again, yeah. So those are the fibres I have in the shop at the moment. I'm trying to do slightly larger batches because the fibre has all been selling out quite quickly, and it's kind of difficult in between times to direct people to my fibre, but also be like, but there's none available at the moment, and by the time you get to it, there might be none available then. Like, because they are limited editions, and I do them in fairly small batches, they can disappear quite quickly. And I do early access for patrons to kind of try and manage that, because it was getting difficult for my website. People were getting carjacked and stuff. And so by doing 24 hours early access for patrons, it just kind of helps stagger things a little bit. And yeah, so some colours did sell out really quite quickly, but there are a few still available, and that's kind of fun. So I am hoping to be, well, to kind of be similarly consistent. Like, I have been dyeing quite a lot of fibre recently. I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I'm glad that other people are enjoying it. And so yeah, next up I'm going to be dyeing up lots to take with me to the Big Flock in Bristol, which is a new yarn show, the middle weekend of May, so in about 3 weeks' time. It is at the UE Conference Centre. If you're in the southwest, like, come along, it's going to be super fun. John and Claire, who are organising it, are just awesome. Like, I love bumping into them every time I see them at other yarn shows, and it looks like they're putting on an amazing event, and it's really nice to do something that's like reasonably local to me here in the West Country. So yeah, I'll have lots of fibre with me. I will have quite a good number of printed patterns, and obviously my Mendip yarn, which I'm beginning to run low on some stock of, and so I am going to be arranging getting more from the mill. That just means liaising with Fernhill Farm, where I get the wool from, and then sending it off to the mill, and then seeing how busy the mill are and how long it takes for the yarn to come back. I'm also working on some Zwartbliss fleece. I can't remember if I've mentioned this to you guys. But that will be turned into yarn when I finish skirting it, and I'm expecting there to be a little bit of a gap where I have quite low stock of my Mendip yarn, and like the lovely thing with the fibre is that because it's custom blended for me, but the wool isn't custom sourced. Like, it's wool that Wing and Woolwork have in stock in their warehouse, and so I can order relatively small batches of that to save me on storage space, whereas with the yarn I commission it from the mill with fibre that's been sourced from the farm directly. And so lead times are just much, much longer on that. So I'm kind of thinking to tide me over in between batches where I might have some processing times. I'm considering doing some like guest yarns, like bringing in like yarn made by other people that is available as undyed yarn that I could then dye up, like, and have it going for like, I don't know, a few months, and then kind of retire it. Like, I'm not looking to massively expand my yarn range because Mendip itself is, like, when I take it to shows and pop-up shops and things, is already unwieldy. It's a range of 32 colours now on 2 weights, so 64 different things, and then trying to have a decent quantity of each of those so that people can make more than a hat in each becomes difficult. So I'm not looking to long-term expand my yarn range, but I think it would be really fun to occasionally bring in like a guest yarn for a limited edition collection, and maybe do like a collection of some semi-solid colours, some tonal colours, and some like more fun variegated ones, and like do a run of those, and then when it's gone, it's gone, and then maybe I bring in something else. I'd love to hear what you think of that. It sounds super fun to me because I do really love doing limited edition colours, and honestly any excuse to make a Pinterest board to capture a mood. I love making mood boards on Pinterest. Really, really love it. Oh, on that note, I was meant to mention, I think I mentioned last time that I was releasing my spring boxes. So I do a mystery box, which has 4 colours in it around a visual theme. You can choose to look at the visual theme or just keep it a complete surprise. I have 3 Mendip DK boxes left. The fibre ones and the Mendip 4-ply ones have all gone. But as I'm speaking now, there are still 3 there. So if you are remotely interested in having 200 grams of fun surprise yarn, I'll put the link to that below. And yeah, same with all the fibre and the pattern for this and all the things I've mentioned. So yes, I think those are all the crafty things I wanted to talk about. So I will quickly show you around the garden.
So here we go. For the first time this year, let's take a look at the garden. Got lots of seedlings on the table there. They're kind of hardening off. We've got some basil, peppers, some tomatoes starting there, some stocks, and a few seedlings a friend of mine gave me, and the beginnings of some sunflowers. They're all a bit leggy because we haven't had as much sun as would have been nice, but it's doing okay. This time of year, like, the garden is not the colours I would have chosen. I generally am not super keen on blue in the garden, but we've got loads of it just from kind of the way things have worked out. The forget-me-nots have all self-seeded. The muscari and pulmonaria over there were already here. But at this time of year, there isn't loads flowering, and so I'm kind of happy to just let them do their thing. So I've got bearded irises on the way there. That's a variety called Carnival Time that I'm very excited about because it's going to be super pretty. Usually I grow sweet peas on these tripods, but this year I think I might try something like Thunbergia alata, which is a black-eyed Susan. There's a variety called Brownie that I really enjoy that I think will be really fun. And then these geums, they kind of start flowering Last year they started in February and then in December, which is madness. But they've properly got going in the last few weeks. They've got these pretty sort of nodding heads, and they self-seed everywhere. And if I find one somewhere I don't want it, I move it. I'm really enjoying this little combination of the geum and the euphorbia here. And then later on, this rose is a kind of browny orangey red. This patch is looking a little bit bare here. We've got a few things in there, but I need to put some additional stuff in here to fill out. I've moved some things around, so I've made a gap there that needs filling in. And then this broom, which you can't really see against the background of the hedge, that is a Spanish broom. We've got the beginnings of flower buds. And those will be big, bright yellow flowers that are beautiful. Because of the wind, it tends to lean over the path. And so I've tied it up against this tripod. And I'm hoping I'll be able to take that down at some point soon. I need to prune this sage back a bit more. We've got the beginnings of growth on the cotinus here, which I love. It's a variety called Ruby Glow. So it is slightly more red than the classic royal purple. And then lots of primroses, which the pigeons absolutely love to behead. They just pull all the flowers off and then just drop them on the ground. We've got some weeds in here. That's always the case. These are Rudbeckias that have started self-seeding from this one over here. And so I'll have a few that I can sort of move around the garden. I'm just letting them get some slightly stronger roots. I'm absolutely not on top of weeding. So there is a fair bit of weeding to be done. But that's okay. I don't aim for a completely weed-free garden because that would drive me mad. The roses are finally beginning to do well. So these roses are ones that we hear already. So this bit of garden, there was a strip about that wide along the edge of the lawn. And so as we've lived here, I've made this section wider. So it was originally just that little strip there. And so I've been doing a lot of removal of lawn and adding of more interesting things. But the roses were in the original borders. They had all been hacked completely back. They'd been mown down to the ground because I think the person who lived here previously was not a gardener. His mother, who he inherited the house from, was. So he did not treat these plants kindly. But we're trying to rehabilitate them a bit and see how they go. This little bit is slightly bare, but it does really nice sort of woodlandy plants in the spring. That tulip is a ballerina. There's just one other one up there. It would be nice if more of them had flowered, because they are meant to come back each year, but hey-ho. Rosemary's doing very well. I'm pleased with that. All of my rosemaries are grown from cuttings. This Mahonia, the flowers are very nice, but the leaves tend to go not nice if we've had a particularly cold and windy winter. So, we do what we can with that. All of these leaves will probably fall off. And then you can see we've got fresh ones coming through here. Then more self-sown forget-me-nots. This bit is sort of comparatively new. I'm really enjoying the multi-headed narcissi there. They smell beautiful. And I've got a hydrangea here that's going to be amazing. This is a Cornus Cusa. I believe it's a variety called Wolf Eyes, but that's me doing detective work rather than working off the label from when we bought it, because it was definitely mislabeled. This is a spirea called Torgold. It has these little buds on it that look like they're going to be pink flowers, but they actually come out beautiful white. So down here, I've mostly got plants with white or pale yellow flowers. And then a little weird cluster here. That's a foxglove. Fingers crossed it will be a white one, but it might be the sort of basic native pinky mauve. This down here is a thalictrum, which I planted last year. Genuinely believed it had died, but it's come back and it has flower buds on it, which I'm so pleased with. And it's a white thalictrum. This is a holly leaf fern. Again, I thought this one had died over winter because they can be slightly tender. So I need to cut back the dead growth on there to let the new stuff come through. Viburnum plicatum, a shrub I absolutely love. Masses of ground elder, which I will never fully get under control. And then another viburnum. I've stolen some of this geranium to take out to the back garden. It'll have deep purple flowers. The back garden is in serious need of some flowers. It's not really a garden yet. It's more just a yard. And it's a bit depressing back there, but that's going to be a longer term project to sort out. And again, lots of ground elder here that needs getting under control, but various bits and pieces that aren't doing much yet. Then 2 choisias. This is not its best angle. I can't remember what variety I've decided this one is. But it has these very light, bright yellow leaves, which in the winter is just amazing because it's so cheerful. And then this other one, which I really like, it's got these slender leaves and the flower buds are just about to open. But this one, again, like the Mahonia, loses a lot of leaves in cold winters. And so I'm trying to prune it back a bit to restore the lower growth because all of the growth is up top and it's a bit annoying. That's a rose called Tranquility that I've planted this year that was given to me. Will have very big, elaborate double white blooms, which I'm very excited about. And then I've moved things around a bit here. Down there was a very bright pink hydrangea, which I have dug up and given to my cousin. In its place, I've put a daylily and then a, to my mind, nicer hydrangea that stays a bit smaller and is further away from the choisia, so won't be shading out the side a bit. This buddleia has yet to get going. It's beginning to put on lots of new growth. I pruned this one fairly hard. And then round here, I need to dig out more of the grass here. I say grass, it's also ground elder. And sort of just, I still need to shape this side of the lawn. And then that side is looking a bit more sorted. But eventually I want to remove this little patio area because it's too small to be useful. You can see you can't even fit a table and 2 chairs on it. So I'll probably pull up those slabs, probably just leave it as grass with a little bistro table on it. And then I think about here, I'd like to plant a fruit tree. We have a plum tree that was given to my son for his first birthday by my parents. And I love it. And I think it would be really pretty here, but I'd also be sad at the prospect of leaving it behind if we ever moved. So trying to decide what to do on that one. I'll have a think. But yeah, garden is just beginning to wake up. And I'll keep you updated as it goes along.
So thanks very much for joining me this month. I hope you've enjoyed this little chat about what I'm making. I am hoping to be able to show you more things next time. I think I will have finished my weaving. If you want to hear a bit about this, I mentioned it in the last episode. The loom is upstairs, so I don't have a thing I can show you. And I will probably still be spinning, but the Mistland should be finished. And I imagine I will be back to one of my knitting works in progress, and then hopefully more different crafts. So yeah, we'll see how we go. And until then, you can find me on Instagram, where I'm posting sort of occasionally with what I'm up to. And you can sign up to my newsletter, which is the best way to find out about stuff I've got in the shop. And if you are keen for more like bonus content and discounts and early access to shop updates, then you can join me on Patreon from as little as £2 a month. And it's a lovely place to be, and also helps keep all of this stuff ticking over. So yeah, I will catch you next time, and bye bye.